Have you ever whispered a question into the silence of the night and then watched your entire life shift as if reality had bent itself to answer you? Welcome to a truth most people will never dare to try. For 30 nights you will repeat one simple question. A question so powerful it must remain a secret, and as you do, your world will begin to change, quietly, profoundly, and undeniably. But here's the key. You must not tell a soul. Years ago, I found myself standing at the edge of a chapter that refused to turn. Nothing outwardly moved. Despite my inner work, I felt as though I were circling the same old outcomes. And then, in one of those silent hours of the night, when the world is asleep and the soul becomes still, I tried something different. I asked myself softly, if it were true, what would I feel right now? That was the question, just that. I didn't seek an answer. I didn't ask God or a guru. I asked myself, not for knowledge, but to awaken the state. I repeated it every night before sleep. If it were true, what would I feel right now? 30 nights. No one knew. I kept it hidden, sacred. On the 11th night, I noticed something strange. People spoke to me as though what I wanted was already mine. Emails came that hinted at it. The impossible began to reorganize itself. By the 30th night, reality had shifted. It was not the question that caused it. It was the state the question led me into. That's what I'll teach you now. You must never announce your desire before it has formed. To speak it is to scatter its energy. When you ask the question in silence, you guard it. You contain it. Like a seed buried in darkness, it draws reality toward it unseen. Your silence becomes the womb of your new world. The question is not about information. It is about persuasion. When you ask, if it were true, you are not seeking data. You are instructing the subconscious to accept a new premise. Repetition turns this question into a command, and the subconscious, being non-selective, obeys the emotional tone of your words, not the logic. Each night before you drift off, the veil thins. Consciousness descends into the subconscious. This is the sacred moment. Ask the question then. Whisper it like a secret between you and your higher self. The images that emerge are not fantasy. They are blueprints. By the silence, because spoken desire shared too early invites doubt, mockery, and entanglement. To tell someone is to invite their opinion, and their opinion becomes a weight on your assumption. Protect it. Keep it within. Let your assumptions speak through results, not announcements. The question is a key, but it only works if it turns the lock of feeling. You must not repeat the words mechanically. You must feel the warmth, the confidence, the relief as if the answer already exists. That emotion charges the scene. That is what bends reality. When you ask the question, your mind will respond with images, words, even dialogue. Do not resist this. Guide it. Steer the inner conversation toward the assumption that your desire is already true. These silent conversations are the script of your future. Do not look to the outer world for confirmation. It must first be felt inwardly. When you consistently ask this question night after night, you enter the state. And the state is what creates the bridge of incidents that bring your desire into view. Be loyal to the unseen. You do not need to force change. You do not need to manipulate people. You only need to remain faithful to the feeling the question generates. That feeling causes a rearrangement. It pulls the future into alignment with your assumption. That's how the invisible becomes visible. There is a reason why the deepest transformations happen in silence. The world we see is merely the echo of what we have first assumed in the secrecy of consciousness. Every great creation begins not with the spoken word, but with the unspoken feeling. And it is this feeling, quiet, unmoved by noise, uninterrupted by opinion, that becomes the seed of your future. The silent assumption is not a wish. It is not a desire that longs and reaches. It is not a prayer begging to be answered. It is a conviction, unannounced and unshared, that something already is, even if the world insists it is not yet so. To assume something silently is to plant it deeply. When you speak of a thing before its roots have taken hold in consciousness, you risk disturbing the soil. You allow winds of doubt to enter through the voices of others. But when you assume quietly, when you feel the thing to be already so and tell no one, you are giving life to a new pattern without interruption. You are allowing the subconscious to digest and form reality without interference. That is the mystery behind the law. Whatever you accept inwardly, in silence and in certainty, will eventually take shape in the visible world. You must understand that every word spoken outwardly creates a ripple. It moves energy, yes, but it also subjects the unseen to judgment. When you begin speaking of what you desire, long before it has taken root as real within you, you invite resistance. You expose the infant of your assumption to the harsh cold of collective disbelief. It is like dragging a tender seedling out into the frost before it has strength. Keep it hidden, keep it sacred, let it grow in silence, and it will bloom in certainty. Think of the gardener. He does not dig up the seed every morning to check if the roots have formed. He trusts. He waits. He knows that silence, time, and inner nourishment will bring forth the plant. So too must you resist the temptation to speak prematurely of your assumption. You may feel excited, even ecstatic about the vision you are cultivating, but hold it within. Let your soul be the only witness to its unfolding. There is great power in secrecy. Not the kind born of shame or fear, but the kind rooted in spiritual understanding. What you do not speak of cannot be diluted by another's doubt. What you do not expose cannot be mocked or reshaped by lesser minds. You are not keeping the world out of your vision. You are keeping your vision clear of the world. And in doing so, you give it the strength to shape the world in return. Now consider this. The assumption you make tonight, before you drift into sleep, will begin working immediately, provided you do not counteract it by talking about it tomorrow. The moment you share it, you unconsciously allow someone else's belief system to enter, and their disbelief, even silently held, can disturb the purity of your creation. You do not need agreement. You do not need encouragement. You only need loyalty to the feeling that it is already so. To assume silently is to declare, this is mine, without uttering a word. You feel it in your bones. You carry it as a knowing, not a hope, not a dream, but a private truth. You go about your day not looking for evidence, but carrying the atmosphere of it already being real. This is the true work of manifestation, not outer hustle, not desperate action, but quiet alignment. There's a kind of magic that only silence can unlock. The invisible forces respond not to noise, but to vibration. And when your vibration says, I have it, even if you have told no one, the word bends. People begin to treat you differently. Opportunities begin to emerge from unexpected corners. Circumstances, seemingly unrelated, realign themselves. Why? Because you no longer carry the frequency of wanting, you carry the frequency of having. And that shift, though silent, is loud to the subconscious and irresistible to the world. So when you begin this practice, repeating the question for 30 nights, make this your vow. Do not speak of it. Do not explain yourself. Do not seek validation. Speak only to yourself, and speak through feeling, not through words. The feeling is the assumption. The silence is the womb. And the reality that forms from it will need no announcement. It will declare itself in your experience. Your assumption is your creation. But it must be conceived in silence if it is to be born in strength. Remember, reality responds not to what is shouted from rooftops, but to what is accepted without resistance in the stillness of the soul. There is no greater field of influence than the subconscious mind. It is the silent engine behind every visible outcome in your life. And while many strive to affect the outer world through physical means, only a few understand that true change occurs when the subconscious has been impressed with a new reality. The question is not whether your subconscious is active, it always is, but whether you are directing it or allowing it to be molded by randomness. fear, or the expectations of others. And this is where the simple act of repetition, done with feeling and secrecy, becomes your most powerful tool. When you repeat the same question, softly, faithfully, night after night, you are not just speaking into the air. You are inscribing a new message into the core of your being. You are instructing the subconscious mind with clarity. You are saying, this is what I now accept as true, and the subconscious, having no will of its own, accepts the emotional tone behind your statement and sets out to express it in form. This is why it is not the question itself that matters. It is the feeling behind it, the belief that is hidden within the tone, the repetition that builds a new pattern beneath your awareness. You must understand this deeply. The subconscious does not understand jokes, sarcasm, or hesitation. It takes what you give it, especially what you feel most often, and builds your world around it. So when you repeatedly ask, if it were true, what would I feel right now? You are not inviting information. You are building a new blueprint of being. You are not demanding facts from the outside world. You are offering facts to your inner world. And over time, that inner world begins to shape your outer experience, because consciousness is always creating reality from the inside out. There is no more fertile soil for suggestion than the moment between wakefulness and sleep. In that twilight state, the conscious mind softens, the critical voice weakens, and the subconscious becomes receptive. It is here, in these final moments before sleep, that the seed of a new belief can be planted with great potency. And if that seed is nurtured with repetition, night after night, it will grow. It must grow. For the subconscious cannot distinguish between truth and fiction. It only responds to what is felt consistently. Now, if you repeat the question mechanically as though reading from a script, you will not move the subconscious. It is not the words, but the vibration they carry that impress the deeper mind. You must feel the answer within the question. You must allow the question to ignite a state of being, a shift in self-perception. That is when the programming begins. That is when the old structure starts to dissolve and the new pattern begins to take shape. What most people do not realize is that the subconscious mind is already programmed by childhood, by environment, by media, by repetitive thought patterns. To manifest something new, you must override that programming. And you do it not by force, but by gentle, consistent suggestion. This is why the question is repeated for 30 nights. It is not superstition, it is strategy. It is about creating a new dominant impression, because the subconscious only acts upon what is dominant. It does not negotiate, it reflects. If you ask this question with genuine feeling, if you truly engage in the sensation of, if it were true, how would I feel right now? You are already living in the end. You are already assuming the result. And that assumption, impressed upon the subconscious with emotion and repetition, becomes your reality. The outer world then reorganizes itself to reflect the inner change, not through magic, but through law. There is no power in passively reading about change. Transformation occurs when you become emotionally involved with the new idea and allow that idea to take root in the subconscious. That is why this method does not involve outward striving or proof-seeking. It involves inner reconditioning. It is not about chasing anything. It is about becoming something. You are not persuading the world. You are persuading yourself. You are changing your conception of yourself. And as you do, everything that aligns with that new self must enter your experience. This is not theory. This is how every belief has already shaped your life. You may not have chosen those early beliefs, but they chose your experiences for you. Now, you choose consciously. To reprogram the subconscious is not to battle the old. It is to impress the new until the old fades from power. And the most graceful way to do this is through nightly repetition, through quiet questions filled with sincere feeling, through imagination that feeds the emotional body, and through unwavering secrecy. You do not share what is still becoming, you protect it, you keep it within, so the subconscious is not confused by competing signals. This is why the process works best when practiced alone. When you go to sleep each night with the question softly alive in your awareness, your subconscious begins to act. Slowly, subtly, it shifts your reactions, your perceptions, your decisions. People notice something different in you. Events begin to unfold in peculiar alignment. That is not coincidence, that is programming, that is the subconscious responding in fidelity to the image you have pressed upon it. And all of it began with a question, whispered with belief, repeated with feeling, and guarded with silence. There is a narrow gate through which creation enters, the gate of sleep. Each night, as you approach that threshold between the waking world and the realm of dreams, you are offered a chance to plant the seeds of your future with more power than at any other time during the day. Sleep is not a retreat from the world. It is an entrance into the hidden laboratory of creation. In that sacred pause between consciousness and unconsciousness, you are touching the eternal. You are returning to the source from which all form flows. What you carry with you in that moment is what you give to the subconscious to build with. This is not a poetic notion, it is a law. Your state of consciousness as you drift into sleep is the clay that molds your tomorrow. If you fall asleep worrying, doubting, or complaining, you are handing those patterns to the subconscious to magnify. But if you enter sleep carrying the feeling that your desire is already fulfilled, you are impressing that truth upon the very foundation of your being. That impression does not vanish in the night. It goes to work. It continues building and arranging the outer world to reflect the inner acceptance. You must understand that the moment before sleep is not a passive event. It is the most active portal of all, for in it your conscious mind softens and allows the subconscious to absorb without resistance. All day your mind may argue, doubt, and challenge new ideas, but in the quiet of night, when you're drifting away, your defense is lower. That is the opportunity. That is the moment to assume a new feeling, to bring an imaginal scene into your awareness and let it become real enough to feel. When you feel it, the subconscious accepts it. You are not commanded to fight with the world. You are not instructed to fix every external problem before you sleep. You are told only this: carry the right feeling into sleep, and the world will conform to it. That feeling is the assumption. And the assumption, once accepted by the subconscious, must externalize itself. This is not magic. It is the mirror principle. The inner world projects the outer world. And the final moment before sleep is when the inner projector is recalibrated. You need not rehearse complex visualizations. Even the simplest imaginal act, if done with belief and emotion, will yield results. Let the scene be short. Let it be vivid. Most importantly, let it be felt. It is not how long you visualize. It is how deeply you feel. The feeling is what penetrates the subconscious, and sleep is the opening through which that feeling enters. If you feel yourself to be wealthy, loved, healed, or chosen, just as you fall asleep, you are making a declaration to the universe. You are saying, "This is who I am now," and reality must obey. Do not wait for the world to change before you assume the feeling. That is not the order of creation. You must first feel the change. Then the world bends to match it. But the world is slow, while the subconscious is immediate. The moment you accept something as true within, the creation process begins. But if you cancel that assumption with doubt in the morning or by checking for results too soon, you interrupt the process. So the work is not only in the moment of sleep, it is in the loyalty you maintain to that assumption upon waking. Let each night be a ritual. Let it be sacred. Turn off the noise. Silence the distractions. Bring yourself to stillness. Then, when the body is calm and the mind is soft, enter the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Ask the question that unlocks it. If it were true, what would I feel right now? And wait. Let the answer come not as words, but as emotion. Let the body soften into that emotion. Let the breath match it. Let the heartbeat reflect it. As the body enters sleep, the assumption is sealed. Many people make the mistake of believing that physical action is the path to change. But what is action without belief? What is movement without direction? Unless the subconscious has been given a new instruction, the same patterns will repeat, even if the circumstances look different. Sleep is your reset point. Sleep is where the instructions are delivered. You do not need to force change in the daylight hours. You need only to master the art of conscious assumption at night. Make no mistake. What you bring into sleep, you awaken into form. If you plant fear, you will reap conflict. If you plant love, you will reap harmony. If you plant lack, you will see limitation. But if you dare to plant fulfillment, even if the outer world offers no confirmation, then fulfillment must grow. The outer conditions will be reshaped. People will respond differently. New opportunities will emerge. Doors that seem closed will open. Why? Because you first opened the door in your inner world, and you did it while the conscious mind was resting and the subconscious mind was listening. So do not underestimate the night. Do not waste it in worry or aimless drifting. Use it, claim it. Let the sleep state become your greatest tool. Fall asleep in the feeling of your desire fulfilled, and watch as the invisible becomes visible, not through effort, but through alignment. When the instruction is given to tell no one, it is not superstition. It is a principle rooted in spiritual law. The act of silence is not about secrecy born of fear, but protection born of understanding. Your assumption is a living thing. It is fragile in its infancy, yet mighty in its potential. And like any seed, it must be protected from the elements until it is strong enough to withstand them. To speak of your desire before it is inwardly established is to expose it to winds that can uproot it, doubts that can weaken it, and opinions that can distort it. There is great wisdom in the sacred command, do not tell a soul. The moment you speak of your assumption before it has become a fact in your consciousness, you have invited the world to interfere with the inner process. Even those who love you, who mean well, may question your belief. They may project their limitations onto your vision. And the subconscious, being impressionable, may take on those doubts as if they were your own. This is why silence is not a form of hiding. It is a form of focus. You are keeping the energy pure. You are refusing to dilute the power of the assumption with the noise of other Maya. It is tempting to share your desire. There is a certain thrill in speaking it aloud, a sense of ownership that comes with expression. But that expression is a double-edged sword if it is not fully accepted within. If the assumption has not yet taken root, the act of speaking it externalizes something that was still in formation. And once externalized, it is subject to all the forces of resistance. Judgment, disbelief, ridicule, comparison. These are not always spoken, but they are felt. And the subconscious picks up on feeling, not words. You must understand that creation begins in silence. The word becomes flesh only after it has been fully formed in the unseen. Until that point, the word must remain in the sacred space of your inner being. When you hold your assumption in silence, when you carry it as a secret treasure, you are allowing it to gather momentum. You are allowing it to deepen its roots. You are allowing it to become real, first to you and then to the world. Do not seek encouragement. Do not ask for agreement. Do not hope for validation. The desire to share is often a desire to receive confirmation that your assumption is believable. But you do not need belief from the outside. You need feeling from within. Once you believe it, the world will respond in kind, but the world cannot believe it for you. And if you speak it prematurely, you may find yourself defending it rather than embodying it. This is the subtle danger. Once you speak of your desire, you may feel compelled to prove it. You may begin to explain it, justify it, argue for it. And in that effort, you shift from creation to resistance. You move from being the one who knows to the one who hopes. And the subconscious responds not to what you say, but to what you feel. If your words are filled with need, they will plant more need. If your words are filled with doubt, they will plant more doubt. But when you remain silent and feel the truth of your assumption, you are speaking the language of the subconscious, and it listens. It is not only others you must remain silent with, it is also yourself. Do not undo your work with inner chatter that contradicts your assumption. Do not speak one thing by night and another by day. Do not say, I am wealthy in your imagination, then declare, I can't afford that to a friend. Such contradictions confuse the subconscious and stall the manifestation. You must become whole in your assumption, unified in thought, word, and feeling. And often the simplest way to maintain that unity is to speak only inwardly and act from the conviction that it is already done. You will know when to speak because the results will announce themselves. There is no need to tell others what you are creating. Your life will show it. Your world will reveal it. Others will notice the change and ask what happened. And even then you are not obligated to explain. For what is born in silence has its own voice. What is assumed in secret is rewarded openly, not because you made noise, but because you mastered the inner vibration. The quiet assumption, held faithfully and undisturbed, moves faster than anything proclaimed with noise. It is not about withholding. It is about alignment. When you hold your assumption privately, you are aligning your entire being with the end. You are saying without words, this is already true for me. And that declaration, made in silence, reshapes the world. So practice this. Do not speak of your desire. Do not share your plan. Do not post your assumption. Let it grow in the rich soil of your inner world, away from opinions, beyond interference. Speak only to your subconscious and speak through feeling, through repetition, through inner stillness. That is where power lies. That is where reality is born. There is no true manifestation without the emotional imprint that gives it life. Words, thoughts, affirmations, all of these are tools, but they are powerless unless they stir the waters of feeling. Emotion is the magnet of manifestation. It is the vibrational bridge between what you imagine and what becomes visible in your world. The subconscious mind does not respond to syllables or phrases. It responds to the emotional tone behind them. And when you speak or think or visualize from a place of deep feeling, you are activating the creative engine within. This is why simply repeating the question for 30 nights is not enough. It is not the repetition alone that carries power. It is the feeling that becomes more natural with each repetition. It is the inner transformation of identity that takes place when the heart begins to believe what the mind suggests. When you ask, if it were true, what would I feel right now? You are not just entertaining a thought. You are initiating a shift in consciousness. That shift must not remain intellectual. It must become emotional. Many people live entirely from the neck up. They speak affirmations with their mouths. They visualize with their minds, but they never drop the assumption into their hearts. They do not allow themselves to feel it. And so nothing changes. The outer world continues to reflect the inner stagnation. You cannot trick the subconscious. You cannot whisper 100 phrases and hope for change. If your emotional state remains unchanged, the subconscious accepts what is felt. It is moved only by what you embody emotionally, not what you recite mechanically. To feel the wish fulfilled is to live in the state of the result before it appears. And that feeling must be cultivated, not through force, but through surrender. You do not strain to feel wealthy or loved or healed. You allow the feeling to arise by gently assuming that it is already so. You imagine yourself into the scene. You see it. You hear it. But most importantly, you feel it. And that feeling imprints itself on the subconscious, which then begins the unseen process of outpicturing that state into the physical world. Emotion is the creative power because it bypasses the critical mind. The conscious mind is filled with arguments, doubts, analysis, and logic. But the emotional body does not argue. It accepts, it embraces, it believes. This is why the language of the subconscious is not English or any spoken tongue. It is feeling. Feeling is the universal language of creation. And once you understand this, you stop speaking to the world and begin speaking through your feeling. Now here lies a mystery, one that most overlook. You do not have to feel good about your current circumstances in order to create a better one. You only need to detach from what is and attach to what can be. You may be surrounded by contradiction, lack, or sickness, but if you can assume, even for a few minutes each night, the feeling of health or abundance or fulfillment, then you are beginning to rewrite the script. The feeling does not need to last all day. It needs to be intense, alive, and accepted at the moment when the gate is open, most powerfully just before sleep. Emotion is not just reaction, it is creation. The world has trained you to feel based on what you see. But the truth is, what you feel creates what you will see. This reversal of cause and effect is the key. When you learn to generate the emotion of the outcome before the outcome exists, you are no longer reacting to life, you are directing it. This is why gratitude is often spoken of in the context of manifestation. Not because gratitude is morally superior, but because gratitude assumes completion. When you are thankful, you imply that the thing has already happened. The subconscious, hearing that tone of gratitude, assumes it must be true. This is the secret use of emotion, not to reflect your circumstances, but to design them. In your nightly practice, do not ask the question like a robot. Do not simply think, if it were true, what would I feel right now, and move on. Instead, wait for the answer. Let the body respond. Let the breath shift. Let the temperature of your inner world change. It may begin subtly. A sense of calm, a rise of joy, a soft conviction. That is the moment of creation. That is when the subconscious is being impregnated with a new assumption. And do not be concerned if your outer world shows no immediate change. The seed does not sprout the moment it is planted. The emotion you feel in silence has already begun reshaping your inner structure, and the outer events will follow in perfect time, but they cannot come until the feeling is made real, for the feeling is the cause. The event is the effect. So remember, it is not the question that bends reality. It is not the repetition or even the imagery. It is the emotional charge behind it. When your assumption becomes your emotional home, when it is no longer a fantasy but a felt experience, you have passed through the door of manifestation. You are no longer hoping. You are no longer waiting. You are living in the result. And reality, faithful as it is, must adjust to reflect that vibration. When people speak of reality, they almost always speak of what is visible, tangible, and measurable. Yet the true mechanics of creation begin not with what is seen, but with what is silently rehearsed within. Inner conversations, those whispered dialogues that fill your private mind, are not idle chatter. They are scripts. And these scripts become scenes, and those scenes become the world you walk through. Everything that is repeated within you, every I can't, every they never, every I always, is shaping the stage of your external life, line by line. The great secret is that the world does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you most often say to yourself when no one is listening. The quiet conversations you hold within about yourself, about others, about your future are molding your experiences. These conversations are not imaginary. They are causative. They are seeds sown into the soil of your subconscious mind. And the subconscious, being perfect in its fidelity, gives them form and substance in your waking world. What you consistently say inwardly becomes the tone of your life. If you walk through your days thinking, they always overlook me, or I'm not ready yet, or I'll probably fail, you may never speak those words aloud, but your subconscious hears them as commands. Your inner conversations are the instructions. They do not stay contained. They leak into action, into perception, into outcome. You speak inwardly, and the world listens. You whisper doubt, and the world confirms it. You declare joy, and the world reflects it. But it is not merely enough to control external speech. That is surface discipline. The deeper work is in purifying the private speech, the self-talk that moves uninterrupted through your mind all day. To assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you must align your inner dialogue with that fulfilled state. You must stop rehearsing conversations rooted in fear, inferiority, or expectation of rejection. You must instead construct new dialogues, even if at first they feel unfamiliar. Speak to yourself in the tone of the person you desire to become. If you seek to be loved, do not rehearse complaints of being unloved. Speak inwardly as one who is already adored. If you desire wealth, do not narrate lack. Carry on inner conversations that assume abundance. Hear your own voice saying, this always works out for me, or everything I touch succeeds. These are not affirmations to trick the mind. They are statements of identity. And identity is what the subconscious records and plays back as reality. When you ask the question each night, If it were true, what would I feel right now? Your mind may respond not only in feeling, but in imagined dialogue. You may hear someone praising you or congratulating you. You may find yourself answering back with confidence, humility, or joy. Do not interrupt this. This is the subconscious responding. These imagined conversations are not meaningless. They are the dress rehearsals of coming events. Let them unfold. Guide them gently. Create a world in your mind that feels more real than the one you see. That inner world, if consistent, must become the outer one. Many people do not realize that the voice they argue with, the voice they plead with, the voice they curse in silence is shaping their world. They may blame others or fate or circumstances, but all along they have been holding court in their mind, deciding the direction of their life through inner decree. The kingdom is within you, and the words spoken in that kingdom become law. This is not to say that the outer world will change overnight, but if your inner conversations change, the outer world must follow in time. The timing is not up to you. Your only task is to persist in the new inner dialogue, to become so familiar with it that it becomes your default tone. When someone asks how you're doing, the outer voice may say, I'm getting there, but the inner voice must already be declaring it is done. And if you hold that voice in place, the world will conform. People will say things you've imagined. Situations will unfold as you've scripted. It may shock you how precise the echo becomes. When you notice a negative in a conversation, do not shame yourself. Simply shift it, replace it, speak anew. You are not bound to continue rehearsing the past. You are free in any moment to declare something different. I am supported. I am ready. It's unfolding perfectly. These words, said inwardly and believed emotionally, begin to dissolve old patterns. The mind, like a garden, can be tilled and reseeded, and the new fruit will always reflect the new seed. So choose carefully what you say within yourself, not only in moments of meditation or ritual, but in the mundane moments, waiting in line, walking down the street, drifting to sleep. Those are the moments when you are creating most powerfully, because they are the moments when your inner tone becomes habit, and that habit becomes reality. Life does not care if you say it aloud or not. Life listens to the conversations of the heart. There is a law that governs manifestation, and it is not one of chance or struggle. It is the law of assumption. To assume a state means to mentally and emotionally inhabit the feeling of your desire fulfilled, to take it on as your nature before any evidence in the physical world reflects it. When you assume the state, you are not pretending, you are not hoping, you are becoming. And once you truly become inwardly, the outer world must conform, not because you forced it to, but because it can no longer reflect anything else. Every state you could ever wish to experience already exists within consciousness. These states are not created, they are selected. And selection happens through attention and acceptance. When you assume the feeling of being wealthy, loved, powerful, or healed, you are stepping into that pre-existing state in consciousness. You are not creating it, you are awakening it. And once awakened, the entire structure of your life begins to rearrange itself around that new identity. This is the key to effortless manifestation. The world outside you cannot help but respond to the vibration you hold as your internal truth. The mistake people often make is to wait for external evidence before committing to the assumption. They look for signs, for proof, for encouragement. But this is moving backward. The outer cannot cause the inner. It is the inner that causes the outer. You do not wait to feel successful until you are praised. You feel successful now, and praise begins to arrive. You do not wait for someone to love you before feeling lovable. You feel lovable now, and love begins to show up. This reversal of cause and effect is the essence of spiritual power. You assume first, then you receive. The assumption must be more than an idea. It must be felt. It must live in the body. It must replace the old conversation in your mind. If you walk through the day with the inner tone of, I am already the one I desire to be, then everything that belongs to that identity will be drawn to you. People will recognize it, even if they cannot name it. Opportunities will emerge, not because you hunted them, but because you became a match to them. The assumption reorganizes reality. It draws invisible bridges between where you are and where you belong. The moment you assume, you begin crossing those bridges, often without knowing it. This is why persistence is essential. You may not see results on the first day or even the first week, but if you persist, if you hold the assumption, even when nothing outside supports it, you are activating the deeper layers of consciousness. You are proving to the subconscious that this new state is not a passing fantasy, but a permanent shift. And once the subconscious accepts it as normal, the world will mirror that belief without resistance. There is no need to struggle or hustle when you live in the end. The end is not a destination, it is a state of being. Living in the end means you walk, talk, breathe, and feel from the reality of the wish fulfilled. It is not delusion, it is creation. The outer world is always catching up to the inner. If you want to change the outer, you must first establish a new inner premise, not temporarily, not conditionally, but entirely. Become the one who already has it, and reality will follow. When you live in the end, you stop reacting to the absence of your desire. You no longer look around and say, but it's not here yet. Instead, you look within and say, but it is already mine. And that difference is everything. The outer world will test you. It will reflect back the remnants of your old assumptions, but your job is not to fix the outer. Your job is to remain loyal to the new inner state. That loyalty is the proof of belief, and belief is what bends the world. You are not trying to get something, you are being someone. That is the secret. The man who wishes to be rich must not chase money. He must become the embodiment of abundance. The woman who longs for love must not seek approval. She must become the vibration of being deeply loved. When you become it inside, life cannot help but become it outside. The assumption changes your posture, your choices, your energy, and in turn it changes everything you attract. Living in the end is not a one-time act. It is a daily practice. It is a decision made moment by moment to favor the inner truth over the outer appearance. It is choosing faith over fact. It is walking through the day as though what you have imagined is already done. And as you do, the invisible begins to move. You meet the right people, doors open, synchronicities unfold, not because you pushed, but because you align. That is the nature of reality. It follows your being. It obeys the self-concept you hold. Change that self-concept and you change the world. There is a profound truth that most fail to grasp. Reality is not changed by force. It is changed by movement within. You can take all the action the world recommends, follow every strategy, knock on every door, and still remain in the same pattern. Why? Because the outer world does not respond to action alone. It responds to alignment. And alignment begins with the invisible shift of consciousness. When you move inwardly, when you assume a new feeling, a new tone, a new identity, you begin to stir the structure of reality itself. Not in noise, not in effort, but in silence and certainty. This movement is not physical, it is vibrational. It is the reordering of your assumptions, the reshaping of your inner conversations, the quiet acceptance of a new truth before it ever appears on the surface. When this movement occurs, the outer world adjusts. Events you did not plan begin to unfold. People you have never met enter your life. Circumstances beyond your control begin to align, and all of it arises without struggle. It is not because you pushed harder. It is because you became someone different inwardly. Many believe that success, healing, love, or peace comes from doing more, but doing without being only perpetuates the old self. If you act from a state of lack, your actions reinforce that lack. If you move from a sense of unworthiness, even your efforts to improve will carry that frequency. But when you begin to assume a state inwardly and allow that state to shape your actions, then the world reflects the new vibration. The difference is subtle but life-changing. It is the difference between chasing and attracting, between striving and receiving, between repeating old patterns and creating new reality. The truth is that outer change is always the echo of inner change. When the assumption within shifts, the world has no choice but to mirror it. The timing may vary, the path may surprise you, but the outcome is certain. The outer is plastic to the inner. Reality is molded by the dominant state you hold, not the fleeting thought, not the occasional hope, but the sustained feeling of being. And the longer you remain in that state, the more quickly life reorganizes itself to match it. This is why it is said that you must not concern yourself with how your desire will come to pass. The how belongs to the intelligence of the unseen. Your task is to become the version of yourself who already lives in the end, not to force outcomes, but to remain faithful to the feeling, to refuse to look to the world for evidence, and instead walk in the conviction that it is already done. This inner steadiness, this refusal to doubt, becomes the signal that pulls all needed elements into place. The mind will tempt you to interfere. It will ask you to explain, to fix, to manipulate. But all of this stems from the belief that you are separate from the thing you desire. In truth, there is no separation. The desire is a reflection of a state that already exists in potential. And the moment you claim that state as your own, you collapse the gap between here and there. The action that follows is not frantic, it is inspired. It is not done to create the result. It flows from the result, already being accepted as real. This is why repetition is powerful, not because it convinces the world, but because it conditions the inner being. 30 nights of repeating the same question, if it were true, what would I feel right now, is not about convincing the universe, it is about convincing the subconscious. And once the subconscious accepts, the universe aligns. The repetition is not a ritual of desperation. It is a practice of saturation. You are soaking your inner world with the frequency of the wish fulfilled. And once you are saturated with it, it must express itself in form. Reality is not bent by willpower, it is bent by resonance. When your inner state matches the state of your desire, life cannot resist you. Not because you demanded it, but because you became it. And when you become something inwardly, the world around you organizes itself to reflect that state. This is the essence of effortless manifestation, not inaction, but inspired action that flows from inner alignment. And that alignment is maintained not through constant doing, but through unwavering being. So if you desire change, begin within. Not with noise, not with explanation, but with stillness. Enter the feeling, assume the end. Repeat the question until the answer becomes your natural vibration. Walk through your days as though what you have imagined is already true. And as you do, the movement within will initiate movement without. The bridge of incidents will form. The pieces will rearrange. And you will find yourself walking into the very thing you once only dared to feel. You do not need to announce your desire to the world. You do not need to convince anyone of your vision. What you must do is convince yourself. And the way you do that is through stillness, repetition, and emotional embodiment. For 30 nights, you are not merely asking a question, you are planting a truth. And if you protect that truth, if you nourish it in silence, if you feel it as real even when the world offers no sign, then you have begun the only work that truly matters. This work is not done by effort but by assumption. Not through striving, but through surrender. You are not here to chase outcomes. You are here to awaken to the truth that all outcomes are already contained within your consciousness. The question is not whether the reality you seek exists. It does. The question is whether you are willing to live from the end, to feel it before it appears, and to persist in that feeling until the invisible becomes visible. The world bends not for those who shout, but for those who believe in silence. When you enter the sleep state with the question alive in your heart, if it were true, what would I feel right now? You are stepping into the workshop of creation. You are handing the pattern to the subconscious, and the subconscious, without effort or delay, begins the process of forming that pattern into experience. You need no permission, you need no applause. The secret is always this. Assume the state, feel the result, and walk in silence. If you can do this night after night without needing to see instant proof, then you are practicing the true art of creation. You are aligning with the source within you that has never lacked, never doubted, and never failed. And one morning, without warning, the reflection will appear. The words you rehearsed within will be spoken aloud by others. The emotions you felt will be mirrored in the circumstances that surround you. The life you imagined will stand before you, not because you forced it, but because you became it. So repeat the question, but don't tell a soul, and watch reality bend quietly, precisely, and perfectly in your favor.